It is known that there were about 15 species belonging to the genus Homo, but only one of them has survived to our time, Homo sapiens, the wise man. Nevertheless, it is still interesting who the other species of Homo were, and today we will look at one of the earliest species of the genus, Homo habilis, the handyman. Homo habilis was a highly developed Australopithecine, or the first representative of the genus Homo, which appeared in East Africa approximately 2.3 to 1.65 million years ago. The handyman, or one of its varieties, is currently considered the most likely ancestor of all later representatives of the genus Homo. Remains of Homo habilis have been found in different places, including partial skeletons, bones, skulls, and other artifacts. One important find was a Homo habilis skeleton discovered in Olduvai Gorge, Tanzania, by Mary and Louis Leakey in 1960. Another key discovery was Skull 1813 of Homo habilis, found near Lake Turkana in Kenya. Homo habilis is known for making and using tools. The discovered stone artifacts they created indicate an early level of technology. Using stone tools, they likely cut meat, chopped plants, or used them for working with wood. Life in groups. It is assumed that Homo habilis lived in groups for protection, hunting, and taking care of offspring. Such communities could have encouraged division of labor and the exchange of knowledge. Diet. The diet of Homo habilis probably included both plant and animal food. They might have hunted, gathered plants, and used tools to process food. Adaptation to various environments. Homo habilis were likely adapted to different environments, including open plains, forests, and riverbanks. Their ability to survive in diverse conditions helped them expand their range. Development of mental skills. Homo habilis are considered among the first humans with a larger brain volume. This indicates the development of mental abilities and probably greater complexity in social interaction and tool production. The handyman, judging by the discovered remains dated to 2.6 to 2.5 million years ago, existed for more than 500,000 years. The brain mass of this hominid was about 650 grams, which was much larger than that of typical Australopithecines. It also differed from Australopithecines in the structure of the pelvis, which provided more advanced movement on the hind limbs and allowed for the birth of children with larger heads. The size of the teeth decreased, and the dental enamel became thinner. The structure of the Homo habilis hand was mosaic, combining both progressive traits and signs of adaptation to climbing trees. The expansion of the nail phalanges was a progressive feature indicating the formation of finger pads as a tactile kinetic apparatus. A power grip developed, which made it possible to manufacture tools. From the foot of Homo habilis, 5 toe phalanges, 5-foot bones, the calcaneus, and the ankle bone have been preserved. It was a primitive foot in terms of bone structure, but nevertheless a human foot. In the handyman, the big toe was not set apart to the side, but, as in modern humans, was aligned with the other toes. This meant that its foot was fully adapted only for bipedal locomotion. The handyman was likely the first being to deliberately make tools for work and hunting. The earliest roughly worked stone pebbles, tools of the Oldowan culture, have repeatedly been found together with the remains of this species. It was precisely Homo habilis that crossed the boundary separating the genus Homo from all other biological creatures. It made the first step toward mastering its surrounding environment. The tools created by Homo habilis were almost all made of quartz, although there was no quartz at their campsites. They brought it from distances of 3 to 15 kilometers. This proved that Homo habilis was truly human. It deliberately chose stones for its tools. No animal not only gathers raw material for tools, but also does not conceive of breaking stone to make it sharp and turn it into a tool. However, unlike later species of Homo, they treated their tools carelessly, discarding them after use. Scientists conducted a series of studies and concluded that the hand of the handyman was well adapted to labor. It possessed a much stronger power grip. No ape has such abilities. However, it is important to note that the precise classification of individual specimens and genera among ancient humans can be a matter of debate among scientists, as new research and discoveries may lead to the revision of previously established classifications. Homo habilis received its name because of its abilities namely its distinctive tool-making and tool-using skills. Since this initial discovery during the 1970s and 1980s, more fossils classified as Homo habilis have been found. As more fossils were added to the Homo habilis collection, several trends became evident. First, the fossils were quite variable. While some resembled the original specimen first published by the Leakeys and their colleagues, others showed larger cranial capacity and tooth size. A well-preserved fossil skull from East Lake Turkana, labeled KNM-ER-1470, displayed a larger cranial size along with a strikingly broad face, reminiscent of a robust Australopithecine. The diversity of Homo habilis fossils led some scientists to question whether they reflected too much variation to all remain part of the same species. They proposed splitting the fossils into at least two groups. The first group, resembling the original small-brained specimen, would retain the species name Homo habilis. The second group, consisting of fossils with larger brains such as KNM-ER-1470, would be given a new name, Homo rudolfensis. Researchers who argued for keeping all the fossils within Homo habilis claimed that the differences could be explained by sexual dimorphism, adaptation to local environments, or developmental plasticity. For example, in modern humans, body size and proportions are influenced by fluctuations in climate and nutritional conditions. Given the incomplete and fragmentary fossil record from this period of time, it is not surprising that the classification has proven to be controversial. Since scientific consensus has not yet been reached regarding the taxonomic status of early Homo, there are also disagreements as to whether Homo habilis rightfully belongs to the genus Homo. Most of the fossils first classified as Homo habilis consisted mainly of skulls and teeth. When bones of the hands, legs, and feet were later discovered, allowing for estimates of body size, they turned out to be rather small in stature, with long arms and short legs. Analysis of the relative strength of the limb bones suggested that although the species was bipedal, it was much more adapted to climbing trees than Homo erectus and Homo sapiens. This led some scientists to question whether Homo habilis behaved more like an Australopithecine, with a shorter stride and an ability to move about in trees. They also questioned whether the brain size of Homo habilis was really that much larger than that of an Australopithecine. They proposed reclassifying some or all of the Homo habilis fossils into the genus Australopithecus, or even placing them into a newly created genus. Other scientists have interpreted the fossil evidence differently. A recent reanalysis of Homo habilis/Rudolfensis fossils concluded that they do sort into the genus Homo rather than the Australopithecines. In particular, statistical analysis indicates that Homo habilis fossils differ significantly from Australopithecines in average cranial capacity. They also note that some Australopithecine species, such as the recently discovered Australopithecus sediba, have relatively long legs, so body size may not have been as significant as the differences in brain and tooth size. There is no exact explanation of how they became extinct, since it happened a very long time ago, and direct evidence is lacking. However, there are several main hypotheses. Competition with more advanced Homo species. At the same time, Homo habilis coexisted with Homo erectus and other early human species. Homo erectus had a larger brain, was better at making tools, more efficient in obtaining food, and could control fire. In conditions of competition, Homo habilis gradually lost out and was displaced. Climate and environmental changes. In Africa during this period, sharp climate fluctuations occurred. Dry periods alternated with wetter ones. Landscapes shifted from forests to open savannas. Homo habilis, which was more adapted to living in forested areas, may not have survived these changes. Limited development of adaptive skills. Although Homo habilis already used the simplest stone tools, they were primitive compared to those created by later species. This limited their ability to hunt and defend themselves. There is also a hypothesis that Homo habilis did not simply disappear, but gradually evolved into Homo erectus, or was a parallel branch that eventually failed to withstand competition. In other words, the extinction may not have been sudden, but rather a slow replacement by a more advanced species. Thus, Homo habilis most likely became extinct due to a combination of climate changes and competition with Homo erectus, which turned out to be better adapted to the new conditions. We don't know everything about our early ancestors, but we keep learning more. Paleoanthropologists are constantly in the field, excavating new areas, using groundbreaking technology, and continually filling in some of the gaps about our understanding of human evolution. Below are some of the still unanswered questions about Homo habilis that may be answered with future discoveries. Was Homo habilis on the evolutionary lineage that evolved into later species of Homo, and even perhaps our species, Homo sapiens? Are Homo habilis and Homo rudolfensis indeed different species, or are they part of a single variable species? Or was one the ancestor of the other? If Homo habilis is not the ancestor of Homo erectus, how does it fit into our evolutionary tree? Homo habilis is one of the earliest members of the genus Homo. Was there a relationship between the origin of this genus and climate change, either with an increased period of climatic fluctuations or major episodes of global cooling and drying?